very welcome to a new Music Evolves podcast episode. I'm Sean Martin, your host, where I'm very grateful because I get to talk about something I love with somebody I love, music with DJ Zeus. How are you, my friend?
Doing good considering we're on take two of this since we had a technical snafu on it. And as I
There's always,
said, I'm scared where you're going to take this, so I took the wheel a little bit there to
I
let the
know,
crowd
I,
know that we too have technological issues when we try to talk
there's
about
always
this.
tech uh, helping us and getting in the way
Absolutely.
sometimes. But no, I'm always excited when my guests are scared where the conversation's gonna go. No, we're gonna have some fun today. You've been on the show before, an
I
ITSP
have.
magazine show, not Music of All. This is a new podcast for me. But
I'm
we've been
happy
on
that
talking
we're not.
about
I'm happy that we're not going to be talking about technology and cyber today. We're going to
that's
just talk
right,
about music.
no cybersecurity today. Um, we're gonna talk about making music from music and making people feel and move and experience
Feel happy.
life and feel happy. Ultimately, yes. Like I
Well,
said,
that's why it's appropriate to wear this sort of this
the
t-shirt.
techniques. Yes, I love
A
it.
classic,
It is a
absolute
classic.
classic.
It is a classic. So
So, what do you want to know, my man?
let's start. Let's start here. So people watching see DJ Zeus. They heard me introduce you as DJ Zeus. You're also known as George Platsis to some, but DJ Zeus is who we're going to talk to today. Let's just start with that. Uh, how did that name come about? Obviously, you're a
Oh,
DJ, so that
oh,
people can probably figure that out. Hopefully,
yeah. The name is very much an inside joke that I did not come up with on my own. So I did not give myself this name, and without knowing the entire cast of characters that were involved, this is just kind of how it came out in a conversation amongst all of us. It was like if A B C D and XYZ happened, well, he's Zeus and I'm Hercules. That's what other person. And we all broke up laughing, and I became Zeus. He became Hercules, and those were just kind of like our childhood nicknames. Middle school, probably, or early high school, and then when I started DJing, it just since everyone would call me Zeus, it just seemed pretty easy to call it DJ Zeus. So I wish there was a funnier story for the crowd
well,
to be a part of, but
that's a
that's
real story.
exactly how it happened.
That's a real story. It's
Yeah,
rooted in childhood,
yeah.
and yeah, a nickname, if you will, for from somebody who I presume uh, appreciates you.
Yeah, yeah,
So you carry that around when you carry that name, my friend. Um,
absolutely.
so transitioning from Zeus to DJ Zeus, when did that happen? Were you always into music growing up, or what's
Always
the
into
story?
music. I grew up as a classic rock person, Stones, who loved guitar, so like Stevie Ray and Clapton. Uh, Originally from Toronto, and for all the Toronto folks out there, they probably know Q107. So I would listen to Q107 as a kid. On Sundays, they had a big classic rock show, and I would pretend to be the MC DJ every once in a while. I had a family had an old little Zenith boombox, and I would record tapes like that. So yes, music was always in my and our lives. The the transition to what you would call more club music, so like that stuff, kind of happened because of actually the person who threw out the Zeus and Hercules thing. I was never into dance music. Didn't care for it one bit. And he got me into it. And the more I listened to it, I appreciate it. So like, I guess by our standards today, it would have been called Euro dance. So think about like Real McCoy, First Base. Oh geez, songs like Majorca, those were like in the late 90s by like Loft, uh, Culture Beat. But when I started researching a lot of these songs, because I was starting to get into it, I noticed, I go, say, some of these got like kind of a disco groove to them.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, you do some research of this thing, is, it's all from samples. And then you start seeing like, hey, these songs come from like Sister Sledge, or there's a great 2-disc set that I like. It's called Disco Fever. It's got 40 songs on there. It's got some of the best uh, uh, popular disco tracks out there. And you just see so many of the new songs being in the 90s were either redone or they were sampled. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have stumbled on this site. I think it's called Sample This, and you can just drop a song in there, or you can research a song and it tells you like where all the other different samples are from. And that was a really cool time for dance music, because we don't have the DAWs and the technology that we have right now. So people were actually using like good old fashioned samplers and chopping up beats. So you weren't going to get a straight 128 BPM that you wanted. It was going to be a little bit choppy and loopy. I think now, when did One More Time, Daft Punk, come out? 2000, somewhere around there, plus or minus a year. Like for me, that's one of the all-time best club songs. I'd even argue number one at this. Could be a number one club song, because it was a very important song to me between that and Cher's Believe, and we can talk about that in a minute.
Which song in particular? Around the world?
One More Time by Daft Punk.
Oh, One More Time. Okay. Yeah.
And Believe by Cher. And I'll tell you my theory on those two songs. I think those were two very pivotal songs for both the commercial and the club scenes. But you listen to the sample of One More Time, when you dissect it, and people have dissected it, you could find this on YouTube, it's just wild how they cut up this sample and repitched it, and it's all from an old disco song. So I got more and more into that music, and then I was making the mixtapes. For those of you who remember cassettes, and we used to play them in cars. So I always had the best mixtapes. And then it started really like in high school from Discman, for those who remember what those are. Wow, we're really dating ourselves. I had some piece of crap mixer, or I would use a piece of crap mixer, like one of these Radio Shack 4-channel type things that, they were heavy enough that you could throw through the wall, but you listen to them for too long, the distortion destroys your ears. And you just hook up 2 little Discmen to it, and it was, I had headphones in one and headphones in other, and you couldn't beat match or anything on that, but it was still it was actually very much how like the old 1970s DJs used to do it on these things. It's like you had your like moment to mix, like if you missed that part, forget it, you were done. You'd have to wait like either to the next chorus, or you may just have to do that really awkward fade in, fade out. So, and then slowly but surely got more and more into it. I stopped playing instruments. I played a lot of instruments and started playing my stereo more and more. So that's that.
So mixtapes, and I'm hoping to get an episode lined up with the founder and curator for the Mixtape Museum. So that's going to be a cool episode. But creating mixtapes, I think a lot of people back in the day, everybody calls them playlists now, right?
Yeah.
But playlists are a collection of ready-made songs. Mm-hmm. Mixtapes, I think what you're describing is a mix, probably, where you're cutting and splicing songs as well to create your own ongoing jam, if you will, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe talk about that a little bit more, because I think there are also DJs known for remixing, not just playing and transitioning from song to song in a club, but actually changing beats and adding melodies and all kinds of stuff. How much of that do you talk about, that whole creative process?
So some of the technology that's available today, I wish I had 25 years ago. It's become so powerful and so amazing at what you can do. Like one of the cooler things that you can do right now, and this is driven, I call it AI, sure, be it AI, whatever it is, machine learning, is that you could feed a track into some sort of processing. And some of them actually do it live. Now, the live ones do have their limitations. And you can start filtering out the drum tracks, the instrument tracks, the vocal tracks. And, for me, why this was like mind blowing was back 20, 25 years ago when I'd be in a club or I was making a tape. I would, for example, wished I had the a cappella, the vocal track of this, so I could drop on this song or this beat. A cappellas were incredibly difficult to find back then. You'd have to get like an import vinyl, and this is assuming they even existed, and they didn't even exist. Otherwise, your only real option was you take the existing track that's got its beats and it's got its music, and you got to manipulate your EQs to filter out and leave just enough of the track, and then you drop it on whatever else is playing. The challenge with that is, again, technology didn't exist. Now you can retune stuff on the fly. I was just messing around with Ableton. This is an old feature, but I had never used it until recently.
Meaning if you're changing the speed and tempo, it changes the...
Well, okay, so yeah, here was the old thing. Again, if we're using these guys right here, the Tech 12s, you could speed it up, but you speed up too much or you slow down too much, you get either the Mickey Mouse voice, the squeak, or you get that big groany thing when like your Walkman runs out of batteries and everything's playing slow. So you had to keep that in mind right now. Back then, excuse me. Right now, though, and it's been around at least 10 years, 15 maybe in some cases, but it's gotten so good right now. You can maintain tempo and change pitch, or change pitch and maintain tempo. You can do that independently right now. So something that I've loved to do with the mixes that I've been making for at least the last 10, 15 years, and I do this mostly in Ableton right now, is beat mixing's pretty easy. Now, I don't think there's many people out there, unless they're true like turntablists, that still beat mix by ear. That was the thing. I used to practice sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours a night, and it would sometimes be just the same songs going back and forth, so you could get the beat mixing done right. Now beat mixing, I think most people just look at the number, they let the computers do it, they let the players do it. What I think is really cool is that you could do harmonic mixing, and that's such a change, especially like when you have a large crowd, like when you do a step up, like I like going up 2 semitones usually. I think that has
raise the energy of the...
That's to raise the energy. And in some cases, you can even do like a drop. I like doing a drop 3 semitone, especially if you're going from a major to a minor, because sometimes those keys are actually, are very closely related. Like if you're playing in a minor A with a C major, those fit nicely, for example, right? Oh, there goes my music theory. I'm sorry to anyone if I get these wrong. It's been a while, but you guys know what I mean.
Clearly you've studied something somewhere.
Yeah. I played a lot of instruments through middle school and high school. I wanted to play the drums. When did we do that? Was it grade 6 or grade 7? Grade 7. You started. Strings were in grade 6. Band was in grade 7. So I wanted to do band, and I wanted to play drums. And my music teacher, very kind man, not going to name him, loved by many, just not, you know, people can figure it out at some point if they dig into history. I remember the three people that auditioned for drums. I did not make it. He's like, kid, you can't play drums, man. It's not for you. And it was a very big blessing in disguise. So it's like, here's your saxophone, because that was my number two. Because I think they felt mercy on people that a lot of people wanted to do percussion, but if you can't do percussion, you know, you get your second instrument. So I started with alto sax, but I played all of them. Most of the time I ended up playing bari, but some tenor and some soprano as well. But eventually I picked up all the drums on my own. There's guitar, there was piano when I was younger. There was some trombone in there and some cello for a while, and it was primarily saxophone and percussion and piano and guitar and bass through there. So I certainly am thankful for the 12, 13 years of classical music training that was there, because it made DJing so much easier. It's like, some people would ask me, it's like, how are you putting these songs together? Like, you would go from like a 9 Inch Nails to a Maximilian to an Armand Van Helden to an AC/DC. It's like, they actually fit if you're picking the right songs and you're doing it at the right point. So, you know, there's like 4 different genres there. One place that I play that, we basically had a no format couple nights, so it was nice because you could play a lot, where other places I was like straight hip hop or straight house or straight trance. Now my preference is to play house and trance, but yeah, that background in music really helped, because it helps you put different pieces of things that you think normally won't sound together go together. And there is trial and error. Like, man, sometimes you'll put together stuff and it sounds like junk. Going back to a moment where you said about like making the mixtape and putting it together, I, off the top of my head, I see at least 3 different scenarios when making a mix. So mix number 1 is a party. That, again, these can be live or you can actually record them. So mix number 1 is a party. Those you kind of need to go to your climax real fast and sustain that climax, because if you don't do it, you know, the party's pretty flat right off the beginning. Scenario number 2 is your more traditional clubs, and I wouldn't do like weddings or other sorts of parties like that. For me, it would be some house parties, but I was primarily a club DJ. And I enjoyed the places that had 1,500, 2,000 people. You know, I had regular residencies in those. There, you also have to be mindful of the business. So it's more of a gradual build up, go down, build up, go down, build up, go down. So like, why do you got this go down? You're thinking, well, you want people to go to the bar, right? That's their opportunity. Not only that, they back when people were more social and they did not have their social media there, that was where you would meet people. So you need that little bit of downtime so people can talk. If everyone's on the dance floor all the time, the bar's not making money and people aren't getting together. And then you really want to like end towards a climax, and then you kind of have a cliff drop when you want people to leave the club and go home. And then the third scenario for me is like the mixes that I make, and the best way that I can explain them is they're telling a story.
Tell me more.
So
something you're feeling or something you're trying to get people to
Sure. It's and you know, people have actually said that when they've listened to my mixes, they're like, they feel like I'm telling a story. So like you can start off real slow and airy and kind of spooky, or you can like come out with like a Mike Tyson punch across the face and just get the energy going. And then like there was a time, maybe about 10 years ago, I want to say right now, my mixes were very up and down. Like they would take you on a bit of a high, then they'd kind of bring you back down, and then they'd send you right back up. There would be interludes in the middle. So like sometimes I was using like movie soundtracks in there, because
the word soundtrack was in my mind.
Yeah.
Are you maybe not a soundtrack to play with some visual, but a soundtrack for the moment? Do you picture it like that, or is it different?
Rephrase the question a little bit because I'm not exactly sure what
When
you're
you're
asking.
putting this together, I was thinking soundtrack for the moment, not a soundtrack for a movie, but a soundtrack, a story soundtrack
Yes,
for the moment.
yeah, it's very much for the moment in most cases. Like, is it sometimes driven by mood? Yeah, I'm gonna tell you. Sometimes I've sat down to do a mix. I feel like I'm ready to do a mix, and I'm like, man, it's just not happening. And other times I throw one together, and it's real easy. And it's the way that I've been doing mixes right now because I kind of know that they're gonna be out there for eternity for the little small fan club that exists. Um, it's more of a production than getting behind decks and playing something and doing that. So when I'll make a mix right now, and Ableton Live is my preference. There's a lot of great tools there, but I think when you talk to most audio people, they kind of navigate to something that they prefer and that they like to navigate. So for me, there's Ableton Live, and I don't use clip mode. I use producer mode, and I got my templates out where I lay them. It's normally 2 tracks going on, but there's sometimes that like I'll be using like cymbal effects or I'll be using different samples, different drums. Sometimes I'll have like 8 different tracks going on
I was
for
going to ask
one
that.
short
Do you
moment.
supplement tracks
Yeah,
with other sounds? Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, I love using cymbals. I love using sort of bass drops and all that because they're nice for transitions. Uh, a lot of the music that's been made, I want to say, in the last 15 years, 20 years, and my emphasis on club music, I gotta say, is like from 1995 to 2005. Like for me that, and if you narrow that even more from like 97 to 2003, I think those were like the peak years for club music because you see a lot of the stuff that's being made today is mimicking or outright covering that stuff. Uh, you could make pretty good transitions. Like for example, when I was at a club, I wouldn't be bringing in cymbals. I wouldn't be bringing in bass drops or wobbly sounds or anything like that. That one was just straight up using the knobs, and that was before you had your like one knob that you could just filter everything out. The There were a couple of mixers at the time that I think like really revolutionized club music, and then you started to see that in like mixtapes or productions or mix CDs, commercial ones. So like there was the Vestex PMC 55, if I remember that one. The Pioneer DJM 500 was great, but like the absolute like game changer at the time was for me was the DJM 800. Allen and Heath had their Zone 92, and then there was another mixer that was fantastic but didn't have the level of control was the MP 22, I believe it was, the Reigns. Like you really noticed how good these mixers were from a sound quality. And I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent right here, right? Clubs would spend a lot of money on their sound systems, but then they'd think to go cheap on the mixer, which I always said was a catastrophic mistake because if you have a good mixer, and when I mean good mixer, I'm not talking just about the gadgetry on it, like it sounds good, it's a clean sound. That gets amplified throughout the rest of the sound system. Now, if you have a great sound system, but what I would call a noisy mixer, which means distortion, and I had played in clubs like this, is you're amplifying the distortion. And
Makes people tired.
it makes you so, like there were a few places that I played at, like every single night I would walk out with a headache because you had this underlying distortion that's just just going, and you're not hearing it because like there's 120 decibels like thumping your chest. But there were other clubs, and I don't mind saying this because this has actually been documented. A club in Toronto called The Government, and that's spelled with GUV. Funny story. Let your listeners go and figure out why that one was GUV and not GOV. It was one of the loudest places you'd ever go to, and it was one of the most phenomenal sound systems, I believe, in the world. And as loud as it was there, you never came out with a headache after. And I spent a lot of time there.
Did you perform there as well?
Not yeah, a couple times. I guest spotted there. Never a residency. But props to Mark Oliver for running that place for almost 20 years.
So let's talk about. So you said when you're, I'll say performing. You can correct me if there's a different term for it, but so there's recording mixes. There's performing live. Yep. In the live performances, you didn't tap into pre-recorded sounds or effects or music. Two questions here. First is when you're recording, would you also create your own elements like keyboard drones or beats or not just use a sample of a splash or a crash, but create your own in the way that you wanted to hear it, or keyboard in the way you wanted to hear something.
Yeah, and for those listening right now, Sean is not doing an effect on his microphone. His microphone probably fell again. So, mic check. There you go. There you go. See?
I was probably not.
He was just messing with you all. He's putting an effect on there. There was a time that I would love to add different keyboards, different drums, different cymbals. Those were kind of like my go-tos there, and I would definitely do those in some of the, call it the recorded mixes. I did not do that live. At least I don't think I remember that. Put it this way, I didn't do it enough to remember it regularly. Like the crazy stuff that I used to do live, there was once upon a time where like I would throw up 4 turntables, and one would be playing like a hardcore tribal beat, and the other one would have a great bass line, and then you got your melodies and your main track, something going on there. That was difficult. Doing 4 turntables simultaneously, and it was like 2 turntables and 2 CD players. That's difficult because unlike today where you can get like that perfectly clocked sound, even if the song was recorded and had that perfect thing, you're using a turntable. A turntable's not perfect. It's pretty darn close, but it's not going to be perfect. The platter could be off. There could be a little bit of misbalance right there. The voltage on a CD player could be a little bit off, or like your slider's just a pin. So like you're trying to discern all these sounds, either in your headphones or if you're going through the main PA at that point. It's like, okay, the way that I would do it is I would pick one of those to be the anchor, and I'd make sure to match everything to that. And it would kind of even get hard too, because depending on the mixer that you were using, your sounds, especially like in your lower mid ranges, you'd phase out, and you could manipulate the songs to put them just enough out of time that you would like cancel out like the heavy bass drum beat. So like you could be going boom, 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 and all of a sudden you just phase it out a little bit. It's like where did it go? So in the live performances, not as much. Right now, the way that I like to do the mixes, it's concentrate on 2 tracks and give them color with different elements, different vocals, different sounds. I haven't been doing a lot of the keyboards lately, or adding extra sounds in that respect, but sometimes less is more. In fact, I'm going to suggest in many cases, less is more.
Less is more. I don't know. I don't know if I agree.
Mm.
I do, but I don't. I do. I think there's a moment where too much is never enough as well. But
I've certainly lived by the philosophy of everything in moderation.
there you go. There you go. I wanted to. I'll mention this group. I came across them a while back now,
Okay.
and they're called Casablanca with a K. I don't know if you've come across them or not, but
I know of them, but if you're going to tell me to name any of their songs, I won't be
no,
able to.
I think they've done some covers as well, but they have their own original stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But they're using a lot of samples.
Mm-hmm.
And it's two guys with a bunch of gear, drum pads and keyboards and turntables and who knows what else is in there, looping machine. I mean, since that's all in there, I'm sure.
Right.
And they're performing this stuff live, and it's quite incredible. And it's following a lot of what you say in terms of kind of starting soft or slow and building up,
Mm-hmm.
and really getting the group moving. Because some of the things you're talking about, where if one thing's off just a little bit, you'll hear it, and it might just be off. But as you go, it's going to get further away.
Yeah.
Some things will get further away, and then it becomes a mess. So I'm thinking that there must be, and hopefully or somebody else will tell me that because you can sync synthesizers with clocks and things like that. I would imagine where the old turntables you couldn't sync. A lot of the technology.
The sync was right up here.
It was in your ear. So, assuming that all exists, my question to you is, with the technology, does that... I don't know, I forgot how to ask the question. Where do you, as a human, get involved with it? If basically you're setting it all up and syncing everything, and it's all there... It's not making mistakes, and you're not necessarily pushing in mistakes. It's basically perfect, right?
Right.
Whatever perfect is. So where's the human element in that kind of scenario, in that environment, I should say?
So I'm going to go back to an interview that I read. I think Paul Van Dyke may have been a video, and this is somewhere in the mid-2000s. I was a very late adopter to a lot of the digital technologies. For example, Serato or Ableton Live. And I kind of thought they were cheating for a while, right? And one of the biggest turning points, because I love PVD, I still love PVD. I think he's one of the best DJs that we've ever seen. Not only as a DJ, but as a producer. Like he really revolutionized, I think, trance music, being able to go into that commercial side. And I still want to talk about Daft Punk and Cher. The interview went along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase this, because he really jumped on the Ableton Live thing, and he started adding synths and keyboards and the pads, because he's a phenomenal musician as well. And the paraphrase was, if you're not pushing the technology, you kind of are like cheating at that point. And that kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. I'm like, okay, if you're just using it to mix two tracks and go back and forth, you just programmed a playlist, more or less. But if you're pushing the technology, for example, changing pitches, doing harmonic mixing, adding in different samples, adding in different loops, like sometimes I'll like to stretch out a sound or do like very, very quick chops that incredibly difficult to do manually. If you're pushing the technology, then I still think you keep that human touch. But if you're just going one song to the other, you're making a playlist.
There we go. We'll push that out there and piss a lot of people off.
Yeah.
I struggle with this as well, and I mean, in the few episodes that I've recorded for the show, it's come up quite a bit in terms of human interaction with technology. When is it cheating, if you want to use that word? When is it no longer
Can I
music?
add to that? Sorry, I'm going to cut you off
please,
for a
of
second.
course.
Can I add because there was something that really revolutionized, I think, the DJing space, and that because it was because of technology, and how if you rely too much on the technology and you lose that human touch, you don't have that vibe. It was MP3s, because prior to MP3s, a DJ had to make an investment, had to go out buy CDs, had to go out and buy records. So you had a library. I was part of a record pool and I dropped a lot of cash on it. So it was an investment for me. So part of my skill, or what I brought to the table, was that I had the library, I had the tangible asset. When MP3s came out, everyone started to have the assets. But did everyone become a good DJ? No. In fact, it produced a lot of crappy DJs, and I have no problem saying that, because having the tools and knowing how to use the tools are two very, very different things. And I'm going to be as polite as possible, even though at least 20 years have passed since this happened. I remember DJing at one of the larger clubs, like in Toronto. Manager was kind of giving me grief about some of the music that I was playing, and saying, well, why don't you play this song right now? I'm like, this song doesn't go right now. You're not reading the crowd. And it was a very big song at the time. And said manager was like, no, I think you should play this song right now. I'm like, drop the CD, hit play. It's like Moses showed up, dance floor. Just, and you saw the embarrassment on the manager's face, and they couldn't explain it. And I was just like, please get out of my DJ booth. This is why you pay me. You could play the exact same song at two different points in the night and have totally different reactions. There are such a variety of factors that, like, what's the crowd like? How do they feel? How much alcohol have they had? What's the weather like outside? All these these live performances.
St. Patrick's Day.
So my third most hated night to DJ, behind New Year's and Halloween.
Surprised it's not the top. I guess I can see.
No. New Year's takes the cake. You get all the special creatures coming out on New Year's. That's reading the crowd, and I saw a lot of that happening when MP3s were going out. People had the assets; they were playing the songs, but they weren't reading the crowd. And one of my most important learning lessons on the DJ side, it's me and a couple of the boys, we got together, we promoted a party, we rented out a hotel ballroom, and we got a lot of people there, put on a nice light show, a nice sound system. And Sean, man, the party was flat. It didn't go anywhere. And I was real angry. And this was the turning point for me. It was the next morning. I said, but I played good music. And it hit me right when I said that to myself. I played good music for me. I didn't play good music for the crowd. And that's when until you establish yourself as a brand, here's the business side, and people know, for example, the Zeus sound, and they'll trust whatever I play, I have to get them on board. I have to establish that trust with the crowd that, like, okay, he's playing stuff we like, we'll react to it. And that's kind of where, like, when I want to try out new songs, for example, that I thought were good songs and hadn't hit the market yet, because I would buy a lot of imports, and I would follow the European charts because on the dance floor side, a lot of the stuff was coming out earlier in Europe. I would bookend a new song with two popular songs in the moment, because I saw this was a two ways to win, no way to lose situation. If they like the song, I know that's a hot song and I keep it and I put it in rotation. That's win number one. If they don't like the song, they go to the bar, they reload their drinks, or they talk to someone. So that's my natural dip right there. So that's the second win right there. But it's playing those large rooms, and I preferred the larger rooms. I did some of the smaller clubs, the 100, 200 people, but my comfort zone was 1,500 and up, and it's a totally different vibe. When you get 2,000 people just throwing their arms in the air together, it's a totally different vibe.
I bet.
Okay, I'm gonna steal this for a second and talk about the Daft Punk and the Cher thing, and then we'll go where you want. So why I think these two songs are incredibly important is because, first of all, they both used vocoding, which was pretty novel at the time. And that robotic
very different ways, right?
very, very different. But from a commercial standpoint, One More Time demonstrated that a dance club song could be a commercial success, and Cher's Believe demonstrated that a commercial song could become a club success. Those songs crossed over, and I think if it wasn't for those two songs, we wouldn't have had that like dance club to commercial top 40 crossover that we experienced during that time. It was okay to cross over because of those songs.
And did you do that? No.
No, I will say that as far as I know, I was the second person in Toronto to play One More Time, because I was tracking down this song. I know only of one other person in Toronto that played it before me, but I only know what I know. There could have been other people that played it before me. That I've played that song to death, and I think it's rightly deserved to be played to. You got One More Time by Daft Punk. You got Delirium Silence, the DJ Tiesto In Search of Sunrise mix. Like you just hear like the opening beat of that, and it's like a 10-minute mix, and that's got to be a top 10 club song. Also, there's a couple out there, but I don't think you can talk about top club music if you don't get those two songs in there.
There you go. We're coming up on time here.
Fine, get rid of me. I've babbled too much. People just want to listen to music.
No. Of course, that's why we're here. But I want to close with this. It's kind of a peek into the future, either your own, the DJ as making music. I know you sent me a link to some fun things you bought the other day.
Yeah.
Or the future of DJing and technology's role there, and any of that to kind of wrap us up.
If I had a magic wand and I could go back to DJing for large crowds and
with turntables,
I'd even do turntables. Yeah. Oh, well, one of the new Pioneer turntables, because the Tech 12s, they got reissued again, but the new Pioneer ones, they're so cool, at least from what I've seen, because you can control Serato off them with like a real 12-inch, but they also have the tone arm, so you can drop a piece of vinyl on there too and just do a switch, and they got controls. It's like, I'd love to get my hands on those. I think the technology is just gonna keep on getting wilder and wilder, which means there's going to be more people that are going to be able to become quote-unquote DJs, and they'll make fancy playlists, kind of like how AI is fancy machine learning nowadays. Oops, I said that out loud, my bad. So I think the technology's going to definitely allow more people to get involved. I still think there is an art and an ear to that. Like I mentioned that story about the club, you dropping the same song or dropping that one song at the wrong time and it just clears the floor. Uh, you got to feel like you're a part of the crowd at that point. You can't feel like you're playing for yourself. Uh, the
Let me
mix
ask
is
you
that,
this. Let me ask you
yeah.
this. Certainly, we get fed playlists, or we we pick a station and we're
Mm-hmm.
fed stuff that it thinks we want to hear. Kind of like a DJ. Maybe it doesn't read the room. That's my question. Is there something that could read the room and know what the right order of things you think will end up there? The muzak of DJs,
God. Uh,
which
there was a
we can go
show,
deep into a conversation of, and then we'll want to go back to
yeah,
the Tech 12s and the vinyl because the other stuff sucks, or
there was
maybe
a
it won't
show
eventually. Anyway, your thoughts?
on much music up in Canada, the MTV of Canada. It used to be called Clip Trip, and it would play songs from different parts of the world. Like it wasn't your regular rotation type stuff that you'd see on MTV or Much Music. And the show was, at least I would watch it when I come home from clubbing because it was on like at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I absolutely adored that show because it's music I would otherwise never be exposed to, and I found so many great songs that I either incorporated in mixes or just listened to myself. When you take away that element of surprise, you're just listening to the same. I think that's why music today sounds so similar. Where's the where's Pete Townsend going braying on "Won't Get Fooled
Right.
Again"? Like like you just hear that, which I do think is probably the best power chord A in rock music, and the best D chord in rock music is all down the line near the end with the Rolling Stones. Um, you you can't make it that mechanical, and if the AI is reading the crowd, as you say, if I understood your question correctly,
Yes.
is it reading the crowd or is it reading like an echo of what they've already been programmed by previous AI?
Exactly. I don't know the answer.
I,
I do know
I
two
got
things. Like
I
I,
gotta
I
tell you, I would DJ some nights and I would go totally out in left field. Like I
oh,
remember one of the most hilarious parties. I say it's hilarious now, but it was like 2 o'clock. Club was going. Uh, we'll leave the reasons why I felt like doing this, but I said, screw it. I'm playing Greek music tonight, right now. This is a club in Toronto, Yonge and Eglinton. And I started playing Greek music, and the crowd loved it.
there you
Would
go.
AI have ever decided to do that? I'm probably going to say no.
Yep. Probably not. Probably
You
not.
got to feel the room, man. You got to feel the room.
Exactly. Exactly. And yourself, and they feel you too. So I'm sure part of it was how you carried them throughout the evening,
Oh, yeah.
allowed that to work. So two things. One, I love discovering new music. So I'm grateful for, we'll call it
Mm.
AI or whatever, to present things to me. I'm
Yeah.
prompting a lot of times for something, but I'll look for the random in the response, and that's
Right.
what I'll latch onto. And speaking of random, somebody told me the other
Mm.
night that evidently the jukebox
The
is now
jukebox.
is now digital and remote. So you don't typically, you'd go in and you put a quarter in and you play a song or 10 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in a place. Now you can do that with your app,
Okay.
and you can do that without being in the place. So somebody was telling me they're sending Chapel Roan
I could see how
to
that could
the
turn into
VA
a mean
club in
joke real
Texas or
fast.
something. uh, Talk about random,
Yeah.
right? You're fed something by somebody, but who knows? Maybe maybe they like it. You never know.
Maybe they do.
So I'm gonna say spontaneous, random, be creative, read the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
DJ Zeus, you're amazing, man.
Thanks, my man.
Appreciate you taking the time to share a bit of your journey and experiences, and
well, if I ever get back into doing it full time, and that's the thing, I will be coming to you to help blast that propaganda.
Yes, we'll do a show where you actually play.
Or
I was hoping you play on this one, but you're not gonna do it.
No, I'm not gonna play on this one. Yeah.
But perhaps there's a way folks can find you, and if there is, then we'll put that in the show notes where they can.
DJZeus.com, and then navigate what you need to navigate, and they can reach out to me through there.
Fantastic. All right, George,
Thanks,
I'll
man.
call you now. You're a great guest. Appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Everybody listening, watching.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today, and please stay tuned. Listen to music, create music, and enjoy it. And we'll see you all in the next Music Evolves.